welcome to our Mental Health Matters webinar series. This session is being hosted through the OneFuture Behavioral Health Alignment Team in partnership with the Health Workforce Initiative through the California Community College System, and we are thrilled to have you with us. We've been hosting these now for 6 weeks, and so this is the last in our series. And today's topic is going to be about self-esteem and body image. And presenting our content sessions each week is Jazmin Rojas, who is a OneFuture scholar. We also have 2 local behavioral health professionals who will share briefly about their career journey. So Kraig Johnson, who's the Executive Director of Jewish Family Services, is with us, and mariach Chavez-Brown, who is with Clínicas de Salud de Pueblos. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jazmin Rojas.
We'll be talking about self-esteem and body image today on behalf of OneFuture Coachella Valley. So who am I? Once again, my name is Jazmin Rojas, pronouns she, they. I am a 4th year at UCI, and I'm currently studying psychological and biological sciences. So a quick disclaimer before we officially get started, the information presented today is not therapy. If you do need further assistance, please feel free to contact us for further resources that will also be posted at the end of the presentation. So some community agreements, I really like to just make sure we all know we're in a safe space by setting like a couple of rules. So number 1, the Vegas rule: what is said here stays here, and what is learned here leaves here. So making sure, we're in a safe area to be vulnerable, share our opinions, and know that this is a free judgment zone. So by creating this safe space, we are free from judgment. Also, one mic, one Beyonce. Whoever is talking, please give them your utmost respect and attention to let them have the space here for today. And lastly, throw sunshine, not shade. We are in a safe environment where nothing but good energy is emitted out there. We're all here for a common purpose, and hopefully we can leave here with some valuable information to apply to our own lives and also share it to others. So some objectives: we're going to be defining self-esteem and identifying tips to improve it, also learning what affects body image and how it can relate to self-esteem. So I'd like to start off our presentation with a quote by Sarah Jane Case that says, "You are both good, bad, messy, and complex, and still worthy of compassion, love, and acceptance." So feel free to interpret that as you wish. By the end of the day, just remember we are still all worthy of compassion, love, and acceptance. So what is self-esteem? Self-esteem is a person's overall sense of self-worth or personal value. In other words, how much do we appreciate and like ourselves? Self-esteem serves as a motivational function by making it more or less likely that people will take care of themselves and explore their full potential. There's 3 types of self-esteem. So there's low self-esteem, characterized by a lack of confidence and feeling badly about oneself. So this is kind of where imposter syndrome comes up. We don't feel capable nor value ourselves enough to do some of the tasks that we might be placed at hand. And inflated self-esteem. Self-esteem cannot be good sometimes. If we have too much, it can really be characterized by an inability to listen to others and accept critique for themselves, meaning, overconfidence. I'm way above you type of mentality, right? Which is not really good. And there's high self-esteem. High self-esteem is characterized by a good sense of confidence and feeling good about oneself. So I love myself. I appreciate myself. I am enough, right? So there's always a balance. And the goal is to have high self-esteem where we are very confident in what we are, what we do, and what we possess. So how does it affect us? In the positive lens, it really helps your confidence, allows you to have realistic expectations, right? If I don't have any medical school experience, there is no way that I can say I am a doctor, right? I don't have the education, nor do I have the proper experience. And you also aren't overly critical. We understand that we all have faults and flaws, but that's a part of the process of being an individual. And also more resilience, especially with our current circumstances. The fact that we are all still here, willing to learn and willing to communicate with others, shows that we have good confidence to speak with other individuals that are not the same as us. And a negative connotation, negative lens of inflated self-esteem is narcissism. Some individuals, we're way up here and don't have that good balance where we don't accept critique nor accept any criticism in a good way. And so sometimes having low self-esteem can actually cause anxiety, stress, and loneliness, as not having good self-esteem can really cause you to isolate yourself in a very negative way. And it also may cause problems in interpersonal relationships. So this is something we talked about, I want to say probably around week 4, where we talked about interpersonal relationships and how if we don't really feel confident about ourselves, we tend to isolate and kind of, get angry at the people who love us, people who want to help us due to our own personal issues. So factors that can actually affect self-esteem: social media and culture, two very big things that are currently in our lives every single day. So for social media, some folks crave validation. You always upload a picture, oh, I want to see how many likes I got, how many comments I got, who did it, who watched it, right? And we try to quantify our worth based on the amount of likes and followers we have, which is something that didn't exist now, right? And so this is an upcoming issue that us, especially as like young folks, young millennial folks who are really just have Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. There are so many sources of areas where we crave this validation, because it's like we wake up and this is the first thing we do, right? And so that can really affect how you continue your day, how you continue your week, how you continue your month, and etc. And also, one thing we don't realize on social media, people tend to put the best version of themselves. We feel inadequate because we are starting to compare ourselves to people who only post the good things, right? Nobody posts a bad hair day picture. And so we think, oh, this person does not have bad hair days in the same sense that I do. And so that's when we start making connections and start associating things to ourselves, where our self-esteem just tends to go on a downward hill due to things that we don't see behind the scenes. As for culture, individualism and collectivism, if you haven't heard of that before, but it tends to be, me as a Hispanic individual tend to have a very collectivistic mentality, where if I do something, it's always going to revolve around my family, right? And so if I really place a lot of value on my family's opinions, anything that they will say to me will tend to get me, right? And it's typically for people who live in a more individualistic culture that have higher rates of self-esteem compared to those who are in collectivistic cultures. And this is because in an individualistic culture, you're kind of making your future by grabbing yourself up from the bootstraps, if you've ever heard of that, right? It's defining your own self by your own terms and no one else's, compared to a collectivistic culture where, your surrounding, your household, your micro scale, like surrounding really kind of shapes you and defines who you are, as well as representation. If you don't really see yourself in the media, you start to create like a lack of representation and a negative representation that can eventually contribute to your lack of self-esteem. If you don't see yourself up there doing great things, then it's how can I potentially do those things that I don't see of someone of my skin color, right? And also feeling the need to conform. If you're from a culture that differs from another, you may feel the need to conform into that new culture, which could be really difficult, as culture is really something we abide to and something we do on a daily basis. And so this sudden shock and this new form of culture and having to adapt to it can really hurt you towards the end of the day, especially if you're conforming to things that you don't particularly agree with. So body image, what is body image? Body image is how you see yourself in the mirror compared to how you imagine yourself in your head. So this is the spotlight effect, when we might enter a store and we're like, oh, everybody's looking at me, I think I look X, Y, and Z, when in reality in the mirror, we're just a regular shopper, right? So body image includes an affective perspective, how we feel about our body, and also a perceptual perspective, how we see our body, and a cognitive perspective, where how we think about our body. Do we think, we're overweight? Do we think we're underweight? Do we think we're tall? Do we think, we're short, etc.? And so the affective, perceptual, and cognitive perspective all really impact how you behave. If I think I am too tall, I am not going to wear heels. If I think I am too short, I am not going to go to, let's just say, an amusement park where, the minimum height is there. And so that kind of hurts my self-esteem, especially concerts. If I believe I'm too short, I won't attend in order to avoid the crowd. And so what affects our perception of body image? Similar to our self-esteem, both cultures and social media. So our parents have a lot of influence on our body image. Oh, you should lay off the tortillas. That kind of hurts. I'm like, ouch, what are you trying to tell me? And also past experiences. If you've ever happened to wear a particular clothing item, let's just say an orange bright shirt you really liked, You step into the classroom, you step into your work, and they say, you should try a different color. So now I'm never wearing orange. And that's how it happens with past experiences and also peers. Something that I struggled with as a young individual growing up in a low income community, I couldn't afford, Skechers. It was always, the off-brand shoes. And it was always, off-brand backpacks. And eventually that kind of impacted my own body image in the sense of I can't compete up to my peers who have a lot more income than I do, right? And so poor body image is thinking you're too much of something, being too focused on changing the way you look, and believing that your appearance contributes to your value. For a healthy body image, it's about feeling comfortable in your own skin, accepting and appreciating yourself, and being able to recognize and value your qualities and strengths. And so this doesn't happen overnight. It's about practice and consistency, and also caring about yourself. And so by not liking your body, it becomes harder to feel good about yourself as a whole. By not valuing yourself as a whole, it's harder to like and respect your body. And if you can see the pattern here, it's just a downward spiral. So the key here is to hopefully, stop it wherever we're at in order to, switch that kind of mentality and eventually focus on valuing ourselves merely above the physical. As a result, healthy body image and self-esteem can really contribute to our mental health, contribute to healthier interpersonal relationships, better overall mentality and attitude, and more emotional stability compared to poor body image and self-esteem where our mental health suffers. Eating disorders begin to enroll. Either you eat too much, eat too less. Body dysmorphic disorders, that's a completely different area of mental health that really seeks a lot of help from a lot of social groups and also therapy, as well as less social interaction and stability whenever we suffer from poor body image and self-esteem. So ways to boost our self-esteem is identify negative self-talk. So if you've heard the term self-deprecation, a lot of things whenever we make mistakes, I'm so stupid, I can't do that, things of that nature are not good for yourselves. And even though they do sound like small comments, eventually that habit of self-deprecation can really contribute to negative self-esteem. It's important to check in with ourselves, being honest about how we feel in the moment, listening to what we're saying about ourselves, going back to negative self-talk, and also challenging what we're telling ourselves. So probably switching from I have to do X, Y, and Z, it's saying, hey, I get the opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. Switching that kind of negative self-talk to positive self-talk, which is talking yourself up. We're more than capable of doing a lot of things, especially in our circumstance. What we're doing is not easy. How can we encourage ourselves for a healthier body image? Is treating ourselves with respect, surrounding ourselves with positive friends and family who identify our unique characteristics. Most importantly, eating well and balanced meals, exercising as well, because it makes us feel good and strong, and identify that as a way to not control your body, but rather than a method to really focus on yourself as an individual. And also be aware of how you talk about your body with friends and family. So before I end my presentation, I would like to challenge everyone to just write down 5 affirmations and just think about, who you are, what you do, what you like about yourself, what you've done throughout the day, and any of the great accomplishments you've been able to do. I'd like to just announce, while you're doing that, I'd like to announce some primary resources in the Coachella Valley. First and foremost, the Jewish Family Services of the Desert, the Clínicas de Salud del Pueblo, and 2 of other great resources will be the All Desert Wellness Center and the Student Health and Wellness Center that provides services at College of the Desert. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I work at Clínicas de Salud del Pueblo. We're basically a health clinic. We're a federally qualified health center in Coachella. We also have a clinic in Mecca. And it's a primary care clinic, and I work with the behavioral health department there. So we launched a behavioral health program at the clinic about 6-7 years ago. And I joined the clinic when the program got launched. So currently, my title at the clinic, I'm a behavioral health care manager for a health home program. So I work with a team of people at our clinic that we help to coordinate the care of patients that have chronic illnesses like diabetes, hypertension, problems with their kidneys. And some of our patients also have maybe have a history or are struggling with major depression or with some psychotic disorders like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or substance use. So we are working with some of our sickest patients at our clinic. So we have a caseload, it's a little bit under 200 patients. So it's intensive like case management that we provide to these patients. So I work with a nurse, I work with a promotora, which is a community health worker, and with a clinical care coordinator. And we work directly with one of our medical doctors in the clinic, who we consult with as sort of needs and issues come up with patients. So what do I do normally in a day? I am doing a lot of outreach to patients, checking in with people. How are things going? Any challenges that you've had? Have you had to be hospitalized? How are you coping with things? Are you taking your medication? Any issues around your medication? So I'm not necessarily functioning as a typical therapist, even though I'm a behavioral health person, the person for this team. So it's not the typical therapist role that I would traditionally do. So I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And it's a lot of interpersonal skills, just being able to talk to people, really a lot of cold calls that we have to do. So it's sort of over the years, I've been with this particular program for a couple of years. So I've developed some relationships with patients. So as soon as I call, like, what's going on, Maria? I'm like, hey, I just need to check in. How are you doing? How have you been this month? And so that's some of the things that I do with them. I work with Clínicas Monday through Thursday. So on my Fridays, I'm actually working with a psychiatric medical group, and I'm providing individual therapy on my end. So I'm consulting with them and providing those services to them. And I'm also doing an online counseling program in the evenings. So and so I am doing, I guess, a typical therapist job or role that we normally do on outside of my schedule with Clínicas. And I work with kids and adults, and I'm doing it because I enjoy it. And I think with the program I'm running now, I kind of got pulled away from that piece a bit. So it's kind of nice, and to be able to get sort of back into that setting. So where did I go to college? So I want to start off with where I went to high school. I'm actually a CV high school graduate. So I graduated from CV high school, and then I did undergrad at the University of San Diego. So I went directly to undergrad. I took a year off. I needed a year between undergrad and grad school. I took a year off, and I subbed at the local school districts for a year. I just needed to sort of gather my thoughts and figure out what the heck I was going to do and what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I took a year off, and I ended up sort of figuring out, like, I think I want to do social work. So I applied to USC. That's where I did my got my master's from USC. And I've had, even though I'm in a primary care in a health clinic now, and I am working, as a therapist outside on my own with that regard, I essentially got started as in this field as a social worker in hospital settings. That's really kind of, I feel like at times, like where my heart is in terms of that type of setting. I think I'll always probably refer to myself as an ER social worker by heart. Like I was in the I lived in LA for about 10 years, and trauma. I worked at Harbor UCLA in their trauma emergency room. So I really enjoyed that fast-paced type of, environment and setting. So I think that's probably how I ended up back in a clinic setting. So I kind of get a little bit of the medical stuff, and then I also kind of get to integrate my clinical social work skills. So and I think that's part of what I enjoy about this job, just being able to meet people in a place in their lives where they're oftentimes vulnerable, and being able to step in and provide that safe space for people to be able to open up and just talk about what's happening, and just being able to contain that for them. I find my job, what I do, my career, my passion, it's just really a privilege, I think, more than anything, to be in this position, so that we're able to provide this to people. And I think it's just a shared humanity. I think that we all, are able to connect with people. What are some challenges? Oh, there's a lot of challenges. And I think because of the type of work that this is, I think it can take a toll oftentimes. So I think self-care, and I know that word self-care gets thrown out so much. It's like, what the heck does that even mean? But it is critical, I think, for professionals that enter this field to be able to know how to practice that and put that into practice and just continually sort of be checking in with yourselves, because we're in a space with people where oftentimes we're absorbing that energy and being able to sort of balance that out. So I think that sometimes can be challenging if you don't have a good network of colleagues that you can consult with and process and talk about what's happening and what's going on. And I think when you first leave grad school, you have that support system. As you become licensed and more independent, you kind of drift off on your own. So it's really critical to be able to continue to find that village and people, colleagues that you're able to connect with. So I think that's one of the more challenging things that I've noticed as I've sort of evolved through my career path.
So I am Kraig Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of Jewish Family Service of the Desert. What do I do in a typical day? Meetings, 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 and more meetings. I have case management meetings twice a week, and it's kind of like grand rounds where we're going over difficult client cases. We're sharing emerging information. If we find out information about a new program, new application, anything. So we meet twice a week, and for about an hour, hour and a half, and we're discussing those difficult clients. It's also an opportunity for us to really debrief and laugh and tell a joke, because the case managers are dealing with very difficult cases. Case managers will help clients who call us and ask for help for anything other than counseling. In their interviews with clients, they're often discovering that the clients, the common rule is the clients don't have much of anything and they need a whole heck of a lot of support. And so having to hear those stories day after day is very difficult, as you can imagine. So we meet twice a week and go over those cases and debrief and lean on each other. We also have a weekly grants meeting. As a 501c3, grant income is one of the 3 sources of income for our agency, and it's about 1/3 of our income. So it's a very important aspect of what I do. And so obviously it is seeking those dollars that are for salaries and capacity, but also pass-through dollars. JFS offers emergency financial assistance for those needing help with necessities such as overdue rent, overdue utilities, food, and medications. And so we're making sure that we have money available for the community when they reach out to us and they have a need. We're almost always daily looking for granting opportunities, writing reports, writing applications, submitting applications, reports, etc. So I'm very busy with the grants. We also have a front office team meeting twice a week. So the front office team meets twice a week to discuss. For me, it is making sure that we are converting those referrals into clients and hearing any issues related to our inability to convert those referrals quickly. So if we're having issues with our electronic health record, if we're having issues communicating via email with clients, it's often problem solving via those front office meetings. So yeah, we're always looking for the monies, making sure we're converting those referrals and helping to deal with any obstacles that our front office team is dealing with. We've had some turnover in the front office, and so helping to fill in, what can I do to help get us through a hump type of thing. And then I'm often meeting with my development director. What are we talking about in the way of development? Philanthropic giving is, again, one of the 3 sources. So for JFS, it is philanthropic giving, grants, and reimbursement for our counseling services. So that's unusual for us, but many service providers that don't offer counseling don't have that 3rd source of income. It's grants and philanthropic giving almost exclusively. So for us, though, it's also that reimbursement. But meeting with our development director, making sure that she is armed with all the information she needs to sell our agency to those donors and potential donors. It is meeting with donors and potential donors, meeting with potential patrons, meeting with our board members who have a friend that they want us to meet, etc. So meetings is what I'm busy with. Skills, I really think it's 2 primary skills, motivation and communication. especially with COVID. Motivation has been at the forefront of what I am trying to do on a daily basis. And it really is creating, in my mind, creating an environment that people want to work in, that people are wanting to go to work every day because, if for no other reason, because of the environment that we're creating, that it is a welcoming, kind, empathetic, patient, understanding environment. And so that motivation and that communication is, I think, the most important skills that I bring. And the communication really is across the board: staff, board, the community, those patrons, potential patrons, etc. But then also prognostication. What do I think is going to happen next month, 6 months, next year, 5 years? What does that mean to the agency? What does that mean to our stakeholders, both our clients and our patrons? What does that mean to our partners, our collaborators? So a lot of it is prognostication, taking a look at what's happening in the community, taking a look at what's happening in the world, and how does that translate then to daily operations at JFS. So I believe it's motivation, communication, and prognostication. Now, where did I go to college? I went to Claremont McKenna. It was an interesting choice for me. I went to Claremont McKenna College. I have a degree in biology. Again, I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. I figured I had broken so many of my own bones over the years that I wanted to help people who were dealing with the broken bones that I was dealing with growing up and playing a bunch of sports. I broke my leg pretty significantly my freshman year. I had the doctors say, you will never walk without a limp and you will never play baseball again. And so my reason for being really became proving him wrong. And so I was, it was all about the game and all about baseball. But I got the degree, got out of there with the degree. It was a very interesting time at Claremont. I'm glad I went there. I don't really use the biology much. You didn't hear me mention anything about biology and the skills and what I do on a daily basis, but a lot of what I learn in the labs, a lot of what I learned playing sports, the notion of being on a team, the notion of giving yourself to reach a goal, to reach a commonly desired end. I think those skills are really translatable to what I do on a daily basis. I'm also, though, a graduate of the UCR certificate course on Nonprofit Association Management. It's a 10-month course. If you've not heard of it, I would suggest learning it. I find it very valuable and would recommend, if you're interested at all in the nonprofit route, that is a valuable course to take. I'm also a graduate of the Disney Institute. I worked at the Annenberg Center for Health Sciences at Eisenhower. One of our board members came into the ER and had a very unpleasant experience, and she had a decision to make: pull her millions of dollars of support for the hospital, or put millions of dollars in support in training in the hospital. So I was part of the design team that went out to Disney to train. We put together the curriculum, and there were 10 of us that led the 2,000 plus employees in the customer care training. That led to the hospitals getting the first of their solution top 100 hospital in the country designation. So, and it really, if you think about it, regardless of what hospital you go to, you assume you're going to get at least adequate clinical care. Everyone assumes you're going to get at least adequate clinical care. What's the difference? How you're treated. Are you treated like a person, or are you treated like a case number? So that we focused on treating people the way we want to be treated, live by the golden rule. It's not an unusual belief to understand that if you live by the golden rule, generally things work out well for you. So the Disney Institute has been very helpful. Also, Meeting Professionals International, my first boss was on their board, so I learned how to plan meetings from a pro, and that has paid off dividends. Ongoing education is the key. Learn something new every day. And I would encourage you, I tell my son, stay in school as long as you can, get your bachelor's, get your master's, continue on. You start getting a master's, you start getting a PhD, you will have a career, and it will be a meaningful one, and you will be happy, I believe. I've had other jobs. I started in behavioral health with Stars Behavioral Health. They hired me to put on what was called an unconvention, to discuss services for the transitional age youth population. And that led to my taking on a position here at JFS. I loved my work at STARS. We lost, though. We were a county contractor, and that's an interesting position to be in. Those of us who have experience being a county contractor, and fighting for your professional life every 3 years. I didn't like that experience, and I'm glad I landed at JFS where we're less reliant on those county contracts, but I started in behavioral health with STARS, and they were a fantastic agency, still are. What I love most about my job, really, I believe it is the opportunity to provide hope to people who lack it otherwise. They don't have it otherwise. Our clients don't have it. Through our services, they often leave with it. And then I get to hear the thank yous. I get to see the testimonials, and I get to often have the interviews with clients. Very seldom am I leaving those interviews with a dry eye. I will tell you that I was raised to never, ever show your emotion. My father raised me to never, ever show your emotion. I cry an awful lot now, and I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I think if I'm crying every day and laughing every day, I think that's a pretty good day, running yourself through the emotions. But we offer hope. We're also very relevant. And so my position offers me meaning. I've never wanted to be rich, or else I wouldn't work for an association. I wanted to be meaningful. I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to have my son look at what I do and be proud of his old man. So really, that's what it's about for me. It's an opportunity to give back to the community. Challenges, lots of them. Protecting and growing our sources of income, certainly. Since a lot of income is provided via the philanthropic givers, establishing and maintaining those relationships with individuals. And as you can imagine, not all of them are very friendly. You run the gamut of very friendly and not very friendly and everything in the middle. But it's helping them understand that their support of our agency helps them reach their philanthropic goals. We have something to offer. All of us, by the way, have something to offer those people who want to give philanthropically. We help them reach their goals. So don't feel as if you have nothing to offer those with all sorts of assets and resources. We help them realize their goals as well. And I think dealing with the feeling that 21 other people rely on me for their job, that's stressful. It is important to be able to forget about work for a brief period of time. And so I would encourage you to find that hobby, find whatever it is you love that allows you to continue to support the community, because what you're embarking on is not for the faint of heart. Mental health is very, very difficult, but it is extraordinarily meaningful and noble. I thank you for doing that.